For further analysis on the escalating offensive on Lebanon, we're joined by Palestine's permanent observer to the UN, Ambassador Riyad Mansur. Welcome, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you so much for joining us here on Q.
Thank you for having me.
First, let's start off from your understanding of the Israeli strategy, and as a representative of the state of Palestine, and as a Palestinian yourself, do you see what's happening in Lebanon as a recreation of what's occurred in Gaza?
Well, first of all, we condemn the strongest possible term the aggression against Lebanon, and we stand in solidarity with the government of Lebanon and with Lebanon in this ordeal. What we wanted is to have a ceasefire after the atrocities committed against our people almost 1 year, the Gaza Strip and other parts of the occupied Palestinian territory, and not to see an escalation, expansion of the war to take the form of this aggression against the people in Lebanon and possibly expanding the war further. What we need in Palestine and in the Middle East in general is to stop this aggression and to move in the direction, political horizon, and this illegal occupation, and to allow for the independence of the state of Palestine, East Jerusalem as its capital, in order to have a different environment in the Middle East, not environment of aggression, colonization, occupation, oppression, apartheid, but an environment of people living in peace and concentrating on development and better future for our families and for children, so that we can have the Middle East prospering and becoming a key player in global issues.
Well, to add to this idea, if I could ask you to sort of further develop this idea, why do you think Israel is attacking Lebanon? Aren't they more occupied with the onslaught that's going on in Gaza? And do you think that maybe this is some sort of tactic to keep prolonging the war and expanding the onslaught in general?
Well, significant part of this reason is the selfish, reasoning of Prime Minister Netanyahu, who doesn't want to stop the war, doesn't want to implement the position of the international community reflected in resolutions adopted in the General Assembly and in the Security Council, calling for a ceasefire. And he wanted to prolong this war and to expand it, thinking that he can save his own political future, and perhaps that he wants to continue the war until he sees the results of the American election and make his calculation based on the results of that election.
But do you believe that Israel's actions against Gaza, the West Bank, and now Lebanon are aimed at instigating a wider conflict regionally, or is this just, like you were saying, a tactic to sort of wait and see who's going to win the US elections?
Well, it's all intertwined. The current Israeli government is most extreme in the history of the Israeli government. It has elements in it who are fascist, who want, to completely eliminate the Palestine question and deny the Palestinian people their right to self-determination and their right to have their own independent state, and therefore to make the two-state reality, the two-state solution where there is global consensus around this position, to deny that making that a reality. So that this government is very belligerent against the Palestinian people, that love really to see the Palestinians be expelled from the Gaza Strip, Egypt, and most of the Palestinians in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, to be expelled to Jordan. And therefore, to fulfill the dream, which was legislated in the Knesset, that that historic Palestine from the sea to the river is only the domain of only the Jews to exercise self-determination and no one else. So these are, the ideas of those who are running the government of Israel today. So for them, expanding the war, continuing, the atrocities against the Palestinian people. They think that these are steps that are necessary to fulfill their, very vicious, dreams, and the genocidal war is being put in place in order to possibly accomplish their, dreams, denying the Palestinian people their inalienable rights, including their right to self-determination, statehood, and the return of the refugees.
As you said, sir, that the current government, the current Israeli government, is quite fascist and quite extremist. And also, you said that many countries, 124 countries, have overwhelmingly voted in the UN General Assembly that Palestine deserves UN membership, in addition to asking as well the Israeli side to halt all aggressions and asking for a ceasefire in general. Do you think that with these various pushes from international bodies that Israel could be moving towards more of a pariah state, or is this something that may not happen in the near future and there will be continued support from certain Western countries?
Well, you referred, to two things. One is in May, we went to the General Assembly and received 143 votes supporting the right of the Palestinian people to have their state being admitted as a full member in the United Nations. After, we received the veto in the Security Council in that endeavor. And of course, we received additional rights and privileges that pushed us closer to membership. Recently, we had a resolution based on the historic advisory opinion of the ICJ, in which, the ICJ concluded that Israel is violating, international law in all aspects of the rights of the Palestinian people, and that this occupation is it is illegal. Therefore, it has to be terminated as quickly as possible. Based on that, we've adopted this resolution with 124 countries versus only 14 that calls for many things and asked that the General Assembly, international community, and states in their national capacity and others meet their obligations to do everything possible to shorten the life of this illegal occupation and to allow, of course, for the Palestinian people to enjoy their right to self-determination through statehood, and also asked, for countries to do everything possible not to engage in any illegal activities prolonging the life of this, and that occupation has to end within 12 months.
Yes. So, Sir Ambassador, do you think that a backing from the General Assembly to have Palestinian full membership influence the U.S. position? Will they somehow regard these issues as serious and back off from supporting Israel?
We hope so. And it is, a protracted process, and it is not, a silver bullet solution, but it is step by step. And we see that there is a growing empathy, support, and solidarity with the Palestinian people as a result of, among other things, of this genocidal war against our people, particularly in the Gaza Strip, in which a large number civilians have been killed. Most of them are children and women, in excess of 42,000 people, and possibly 10,000 more who are under the rubble that we were unable, get to them yet, and more than 100,000 people injured and 2 million displaced in different parts of the Gaza Strip. So, that as a result of all these things, we see that the global move, countries, including in the West, including in the United States of America, is moving slowly but surely in the direction of addressing the rights of Palestinians, supporting the movement in the direction of fulfilling the inalienable rights of the Palestinians.
Yes, sir.
Self-determination.
Yes. Well, as you've said earlier, according to the ICJ, they have recommended or found that Israel is possibly committing genocide, in addition to ICC possibly issuing arrest warrants against members of the Israeli government on account of their conduct in Gaza. Do you think that this could deter the Israelis from violating further international laws? And also, do you think that possibly the international community in general will somehow use, for instance, weapons embargoes against Israel or target certain aspects of the Israeli government to deter them from violating international law?
Well, certainly, that the legal option that we hope that in the ICJ, the National Court of Justice, or the ICC, the National Criminal, Court, do add to active effort of maximizing the pressure in Israel to change its behavior, to stop from violating international law, and to prepare itself for the evacuation from the occupied territory to allow the Palestinian people to exercise self-determination and statehood on the borders of the 4th of June of 1967 and the return of refugees. But of course, in addition to all these things, we need to resort to additional practical steps, including, sanctions against them, as in the case of South Africa during the period of time of fighting against apartheid. We need to do everything possible and to use all practical steps, including sanctions, so to force them to comply with their obligation under international law and on the basis of relevant UN resolutions, so that we can see change of their illegal behavior and to allow for the beginning of the withdrawal and attainment of the rights of the Palestinians.
Okay, if we could sort of move back to Lebanon, Mr. Ambassador. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians currently live in refugee camps in Lebanon, and some of these camps were subjected to Israeli attacks. Are you concerned about the safety of the Palestinian refugee population in Lebanon?
I am, of course I am. This, vicious Israeli government, which demonstrated its character by this genocidal war against our people, particularly in the Gaza Strip, is capable of carrying the same methods in other places, including in Lebanon. This government that is characterizing, the UNRWA, which is the UN agency that looks after the Palestinians as a terrorist organization, wants to negate the existence of the Palestinian question by, among other things, trying to destroy refugee camps, not only in the occupied territory, but also in places like in Lebanon, because they believe that the existence of UNRWA, the existence of refugee camps, keep the Palestine question alive, and they want to negate the Palestine question by waging these wars of atrocities against our people, including our refugee camps in Lebanon, along with the people of Lebanon as a whole, as they are demonstrating every day, particularly in Beirut, in the south, in Sidon, in Tyre, and even Tripoli, as you referred to in the beginning of the program.
Okay, thank you. Palestine's permanent observer to the UN, Ambassador Riyad Mansur. Thank you so much for joining us and for your insights, and hopefully we can talk to you again.